Charlo Greene. Yes, that Charlo Greene that quit on air to go run the Alaska Cannabis Club, which we learned was already up and running. This is Cannabis Economy. I am your host, Seth Adler. Charlo Greene brings the entire story to us, unmitigated, unfettered. Just enjoy this one. Incidentally, you can follow us on Twitter at CanEconomy. That's two N's in the word economy. Happy to be on the Sexpot Comedy Co-op and Cannabis Radio Network. So Charlo Greene of the Alaska Cannabis Club, Charlo Greene of the newly minted Go Green, both of which we'll get into. But, you know, if the kids are listening, it's Charlo Greene of F It, I Quit, right? That's the Charlo Greene we're talking to.
Yeah, that's me.
So, are you really from Alaska? I mean, that is the first thing that I asked you when we spoke the first time.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely from Alaska. I grew up there, elementary, middle, and high school, and moved away for college and only moved back for my reporting job, my last reporting job at KTVA in Anchorage.
Right. Okay. And so I visited Alaska. I got a chance to sit down with Cynthia Franklin. We've talked about that. Alaska really is very far away. That is true. But it is definitely the United States of America. And there is an Alaskan way. Can you explain what the Alaskan way is?
Well, Alaskans are really big on privacy and just, again, the Alaskan way is doing things your own way, living life on your own terms. That's why a lot of people move to the last frontier. It's because we have so much space out there. People are able to breathe and really do themselves.
And how do you think that informed your personality? You know, how much Alaska is in Charlo Greene, basically?
I'm Alaskan through and through. I don't
Right.
believe in living life on anyone else's terms but my own. So I think I've made that clear up to this point.
Indeed. The proof, as they say, is certainly in the pudding. Growing up in Alaska, it's kind of, even if you're in a big town, it's a small town. Which town did you grow up in?
I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, which is the largest town in the state, but it's still really, really small towny.
Yeah, and what was high school like? You know, how many kids were in your class and all of that?
How many kids were in my class? My graduating class was probably a few hundred. It didn't feel too small to me, but I did know everyone. I mean, in Alaska, it's not like people move in and out of town like we have bordering states. It's a commitment to come and go. So most people come and stay for a while. So I knew pretty much everyone else I went to school with. And high school was a lot of fun. I was able to get into a lot of trouble and learn a lot about myself and meet the best people that I could have linked up with that would have changed my life forever, and those were my best friends. So high school was good.
Yeah. When you say you kind of learned a lot about yourself, what was that kind of first moment of enlightenment having to do with you and your person? What did you first realize, that big moment of Zen, if you will, in high school when you were coming to know yourself?
No, there was no Zen in high school. It was just a lot going on and a lot of self-realization. And I think that's when I started to realize how powerful I am as a person. I was really shy growing up, and I decided I was going to change everything when I got to high school. So I ended up trying out for the cheerleading squad and making varsity as a freshman, one of the only few, and I became captain shortly after. And it was just really, really cool to see how I was able to cultivate diversity on the cheerleading squad. It was completely white before I joined, and immediately after I became captain, it was the most diverse squad in the entire state. So that was, it was cool. It was an inkling as to what else was to come, but all while I was doing all of that positive stuff, there was also a lot going on with me drinking. Alcohol abuse is a huge thing in Alaska, and I fell into that same trend in high school with abusing alcohol really early on. So that's something that I ended up graduating from high school with and moving down to Texas in college.
Yeah. What are you getting at there? What do you mean? Graduating high school with and moving to Texas with. What do you mean?
With a drinking problem, like from high school.
So go further. How out of your control was it?
It got to the point where in college I was I was literally failing out of every class that I was taking, and my best friend Kianda actually suggested that I stop drinking so much and try cannabis, and I went from failing out to landing on the dean's list every semester after I picked up smoking and graduating cum laude and becoming a news anchor, and the rest is history. And that's all because of cannabis, and because I had that support team, my good friends there that were helping to make sure I didn't go all the way off the deep end.
There's nothing like a good support network, obviously. And we've talked, to others, Steve Fox, of course, specifically about how, marijuana is safer than alcohol. But talk about focus. Let's talk about focus and cannabis, because what you're saying is you were able clearly to focus with using cannabis. So debunk that myth of the lack of focus in cannabis.
You are way more focused on what you actually want to do. Like everything else just clears away, and you're in a space where you're comfortable simply doing that task until it gets done. At least that was the case for me. Instead of me feeling like I had to constantly be out in the streets, it was calming. It felt homey. So that was something that I really appreciated about my cannabis usage.
Yeah, and you talk about it. It's a very personal relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't like talking about my own personal history with cannabis, but this is exactly what I signed up for, and I know that sharing my own story and how cannabis helped me to overcome my own issues and help me to become the powerful force of nature that I am today, then that's what I have to do. And here we are speaking and doing just that.
Yeah. So you mentioned UT, but you didn't go to UT Austin. You went to UT Arlington. So that's, again, kind of a small town application of UT, right? Is that fair?
That's definitely fair. There's no football team there. I wasn't really involved in selecting the college that I wanted to attend. I just let my friends choose, and that was the school that they chose. So all along, I was expecting to arrive in Longhorn Nation and burnt orange everywhere, and imagine my surprise when I arrived and there wasn't even a football team in existence at my university.
So you all went down there? Was it a few of you that went from Alaska down to UT Arlington?
Yeah, there were 4 of us total. In high school, we had actually decided to brand our clique, and everyone knows this as Absolute, spelled ABSALUTE. So Absolute moved down to Texas to go to school together. And looking back, 3 of us have master's degrees, and then there's me, the news anchor, and we're all doing really, really, really tremendously compared to where we came from. So it's awesome to look back and see that.
That's awesome. And again, that support network is invaluable. How did you find broadcasting? It sounds like you had found your kind of inner self and found the fact that you had some leadership skills, with the cheerleading. Where did Charlo meet broadcast, or where did broadcast meet Charlo?
Well, while I was in college, actually, when I signed up for college, I set out on the pre-med track, and I learned pretty early on that it would take a lot more math than I had in me, and a lot more science than I had it, and several more years than I wanted to in order to attain that goal. So I started searching for what it is that I wanted to do, and right around this time I saw a news story out of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, about these 2 judges that had accepted more than $2 million in kickbacks in exchange for sending poor kids to jail, like actual jail for things like passing notes and posting Facebook posts about teachers or administrators, and in the process these judges ruined thousands of lives, and I couldn't understand how no one spoke up for these people that had been harmed for years and years and years, and I knew if I had a microphone I could make a difference. So I became a journalist to make a difference because of that story.
That's awesome. And you came out, and you stayed down in the Texas kind of area, a couple stops along the way: West Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee. Before you got to Alaska, I guess what were some key learnings along the way from your initial kind of broadcast career?
I think the key learnings were that my job was bullshit. I think that was a big thing that stood out pretty early.
You already knew back then?
Well, you learn. I interned in 2007 and 2008, right around the time of budget cuts, when news stations were changing everything and shifting the focus completely from how do we provide good coverage to how do we generate more dollars. And once you have something that's supposed to be a service out there competing with private interests, how are you supposed to protect the integrity of that service? And so that was my entry into journalism, just seeing the different things, like why are the Dallas Cowboys leading the news 5 days a week in Dallas, Texas, when there are people like getting shot and killed, and half of what really needs to get covered isn't being covered. I interned in Dallas, so that was
right.
Just like a big question thing for me. And then working as a news anchor and journalist out in West Virginia, I actually ended up getting in quite a bit of trouble for doing actual journalism, for being a community watchdog. I did a story on an 8th grader named Jared Markham. He was 14 years old, and he wore a t-shirt to school that had the picture of a gun and the words "Protect Your Right" on it. And it wasn't against the dress code or anything. We analyzed all of that, looked over all of the charging documents. Yeah. Well, he was arrested at school for wearing that shirt and refusing to take it off, and initially charged with making terroristic threats and disturbing the education process, and there was another 3rd charge in there, and he was hauled away at middle school and charged without his parents even being called. And because of all of the attention that this story generated, even though all of the other stations refused to cover it because of the ties that the judge and people in the school had with the community, it ruffled a lot of feathers with our advertisers. The station's largest advertiser actually called in a favor and had me taken off the air. I mean, it is what it is. That was crazy for me. That was kind of a slap in the face, because this was the kind of story that you get into journalism for, to be able to
right.
right a wrong. Like, here it is, here's a 14-year-old kid, and this is going to ruin his life, like, period. And so getting to address that was it was reaffirming for me, who got into this just to make a difference and to help, but seeing the cost I had to pay, which was, at the end of the situation, my job there, I think that was really eye-opening and put me in a position where, when I accepted the job in Anchorage, Alaska, I knew going in that if I was going to be fulfilling my purpose, it wasn't going to be as a journalist.
So before we get there, though, because that did happen in West Virginia, let's go ahead and take the other 2 stops along the way. In Georgia or Tennessee, was there anything like that happened, or was that just kind of steps along the way?
In Georgia, no, not so much. Tennessee, not really. I think that's when I got the first glimpse of the politics inside of the news industry. But this was the first time that it was us actually, or me seeing the news actually choose profit over the promise that we made to the community.
And was there a specific issue in terms of politics in Tennessee, or are you generally speaking?
Just speaking generally, just in how when the boss says something goes and it comes from way high up, then it just is what it is. It doesn't matter what the content is. If you're to read a line exactly how you're supposed to read a line, then that's what you're going to do. I always think it's really funny when I see, is it Conan O'Brien that does that that mashup of news anchors reading the same what's supposed to be witty line, and it goes market to market to market, showing people how their news is prepackaged.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds great.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. But that gives you a look at exactly what's going on, and it's just really the media is really powerful, and I think it misuses, or people that are in positions of power abuse that power constantly, and it's costing all of us.
Yeah. So what you get the job? How did you get the job back in Alaska? And you went in kind of knowing it, but how did you get the job?
They were one of several news stations that contacted me asking me to join the station. I think there were one of 6 that I was seriously weighing at the time, which is a decent amount of job offers, actually. I was overwhelmed almost with the opportunities at hand, but they had an offer I couldn't refuse, so I went home.
Right. And what was the offer to be a reporter? How did they kind of package the offer for you?
With a big fat number on it.
Okay. So they wanted you. They definitely wanted you.
Yeah, definitely. And the salary was unheard of, kind of.
Okay. And so when specifically was that? When did you join the team at KTVA?
December of 2013, I believe.
2013. Okay. So December 2013. So the year 2014. Anything of interest happened before what we know happened?
I launched the Alaska Cannabis Club secretly as a journalist. That was relatively exciting, but secret.
So I was asking about KTVA stuff, but fair enough. When you got back there, December 2013, when did you launch Alaska Cannabis Club? What month?
April 20th of 2014.
Okay, April 20th. That's a specific day. That's 4/20/13. And why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, I was working as the crime and courts reporter initially, and since cannabis was only a crime at the time, that fell into my lap. We were doing a lot of discussion surrounding ballot measure 2, the ballot initiative that would legalize adult usage in Alaska, adult cannabis usage in Alaska. And so I got to report on all things marijuana. I did a special where I was flown to Colorado and Washington to look at the aftermath of legalization and show Alaskans what our state could look like if they decided to vote yes. And while I was out there, I learned about the real harm of cannabis prohibition. And when I got back to Alaska and realized that there were patients that were going without what I learned was in fact life-saving medicine as a journalist, I knew that there was probably only one person on the planet that could take action and actually help this group of people that were in desperate need. And so that person was me, and I took action and I created the Alaska Cannabis Club as a way for people that needed help to get the help to address their medical conditions.
Okay. So that's April 20th. How smoothly did it go for the rest of April, May, June?
That was growing really, really rapidly. Faster than anyone had expected when I set out to launch the club. As soon as we went online, we saw how immense the need was. We were expecting maybe a couple dozen likes in the first day or so, and when we got a few hundred in and received all of the messages thanking us for just being there. I mean, no one even knew what we were going to be doing, but the response was so overwhelming. I knew immediately that running the Alaska Cannabis Club and being a reporter were not two things that could coexist in one life. So I decided then and there that running the Alaska Cannabis Club and fighting for medical marijuana patients and safe access and freedom, that's what I was going to do.
So you knew that. I wonder, because I've certainly seen the footage. How much of that was in the moment? What day was it? Talk about waking up that morning and talking about, when the red light went on and your thought process. So first things first, what day was it?
It was a Sunday, and on weekends we have a really, really light news team, a skeleton staff. So I knew that I had been assigned to cover the Alaska Cannabis Club because I cleared it with my boss earlier that week. In fact, the Alaska Cannabis Club sent KTVA, my news station, a press release titled Alaskans with Common Sense Call Bullshit on No on 2 campaign that I knew would get the attention of my boss. We sent it out on a Thursday, but because of different things happening that day, the story had to wait till Sunday. So I get to work and we go and interview Solomon and his mother Tilly. Solomon's the club's youngest medical marijuana card holder. At 21, he was battling testicular cancer, and it was his own mother that urged him to join the Alaska Cannabis Club. And so both of them agreed not to admit that me, their interviewer, was also the weed lady they were doing the interview about. And so we were able to cut all of that together into a pre-taped segment, and that aired. And as soon as the time comes for me to go live, the teleprompter is running with another script that I had written and put into it that doesn't include Fuck I Quit, of course. And I just start to speak from my heart. And I say everything you heard is why I, the actual owner of the Alaska Cannabis Club, will be dedicating all of my energy toward fighting for freedom and fairness, which begins with legalizing marijuana here in Alaska. And as for this job, well, not that I have a choice, but fuck it, I quit. And
so I am looking at the transcript, and that is word for word. So you, so you know what you said, certainly. How much of it, you said it, you were speaking from the heart. Obviously now you know it by heart. You are a practiced person on camera. I've seen you on camera. I've been with you on camera. And, so when the light goes on, Charlo's on. But how much of it was from the heart, and how much of it did you know you were going to say?
All of it was. I mean, when you're in the newsroom, you're expecting to read from the teleprompter. When you're out on scene, you're not expected to know. In fact, when you see reporters tripping themselves up, it's because they're trying to remember a pre-rehearsed script. So that's what the pros don't do. So when you saw me speaking, why it was so seamless is because I was speaking from the heart.
That's amazing. It really is amazing that as far as the history of broadcast, this is, up there. You know what I mean? There is no other example of this.
No, I know. I get emails all the time from different journalism classes telling me about how they're discussing the Fuck It, I Quit thing and would like to do stories about journalistic ethics and this and that. I think it's cool. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah. Examples that come to mind are the movie Network. Get up off of your chairs, go to your window and shout, "We're not going to take it anymore." I mean, that is...
It's time to get angry. Yeah, that was good.
I mean, you've obviously seen that movie, yes?
Yeah, I guess I did.
That's a movie, though, Charlo. You did this on live television.
That happened. It did happen. It should be a movie.
And then the only other thing that I can kind of relate to this is kind of innovation on television. I think of Ernie Kovacs, who just literally turned television upside down, and go, check out clips of that. Because I think that, that is exactly what you did that day. Do you have that sense or no?
I think I changed a thing or two.
Yeah. Okay. So you do have that sense. Let's okay, so you quit, and then how much of this, you already have the Alaska Cannabis Club up and running, that is why you quit. So you did quit to follow your passion. When did the calls start coming in? Was it immediately?
It was probably 4 hours afterward, once New York started to wake up, New York's morning shows. And so I guess that was 6 a.m., 5 a.m. in New York, which would have been 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in Anchorage. And the calls didn't stop for weeks and weeks.
Right.
It was a group of 5 of us just taking turns power napping in between responding to Facebook messages and emails and phone calls and interview requests, and actually getting out in the community and crisscrossing the massive state of Alaska, following up on Fuck It, I Quit, and actually relaying what it was that drove me to that decision and why Alaskans needed to get out and vote.
So then it did turn into kind of a campaign, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about the kind of questions that you were getting from your fellow reporters? I put fellow reporters in air quotes. What did you notice from your fellow reporters, initially in New York and then all over the country, asking you about what had happened? What did you notice as a reporter yourself?
That all of them knew exactly where I was coming from and understood the position that I was in and respected the choice that I made. I think that was one of the most reassuring things. Not that it really mattered. I did it, period, point blank. But just knowing that so many other people, other journalists, were real people that saw the same issues in their own coverage in this cannabis space and in regards to other matters, that was something that stood out.
So that's nice, and that's good. Another nice and good thing is that with your campaigning assistance, obviously, adult use did pass in Alaska. Take us through the win and your thoughts and what happened on election night.
Well, I think it's also important to shine a light on the fact that I think it was in March of 2014, we had about 55% support of ballot measure 2, and before Fuck It, we were down to about 46%. That's where public perception was at. And so the fact that nothing changed aside from Fuck It and we were able to pass at 52%, I think it's more than just with the assistance. Without Fuck It, it wouldn't have passed. That just is what it is.
I did not know that. All right, so wait, what drove those numbers down? If it was above 50, what drove it under 40?
The prohibitionists were doing a great job at what they always do, fear-mongering. What about the kids? Well, what about green crack? Have you seen the torches from this dangerous thing called dabbing? It was the same thing. So I think what Fuck It did was disrupt that conversation and force people to just talk about cannabis. And when people are talking about it, they're going to find their own answers. And the internet is not the place to promote propaganda and bullshit. I mean, you can Google every lie that they throw out there and have proof against it. And so that's what was most powerful about Fuck It, I Quit, was it forced people to talk about cannabis. And I think those conversations led to the legalization of cannabis in Alaska.
Yeah, and what is great about cannabis is that the truth and the facts are on the side of cannabis, which is great. And cannabis not only passed, but passed with a higher percentage of votes than both Republican senators, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. People turned out for the vote. Everyone knew about the vote. Before, people weren't even sure that it was on the ballot. After, there was no excuse as to why you didn't make it out to the polls if you knew cannabis prohibition needed to end. No excuses.
Awesome. All right, so so ends 2014 with legal cannabis from the adult use perspective. However, 2015, which has now ended, we're talking in January of 2016. That was not an easy ride for cannabis in Alaska, and specifically for you and the Alaska Cannabis Club. Why don't you get into that?
Well, the state of Alaska, the Anchorage Police Department, actually, the state Department of Law had little to do with it, but APD decided to raid the Alaska Cannabis Club a month after the new legalization laws took effect. And not once, but twice, actually. And that was really unfortunate.
What was the justification for the raids?
The justification is that we were jumping the gun. That us at the Alaska Cannabis Club, we're circumventing the will of the voters who voted for a regulated system. And so because of that, we deserve to have more than a dozen armed officers break down the front door and put guns in everyone's faces and take everyone's personal property. So
right. So after those two raids, did you open back up again? And are you open now?
Immediately afterward, within 24 hours, we opened the club on both occasions as a show of force. I mean, the fact that I decided to stand up and advocate for something that I know is right for my community to try and punish me or make an example out of me. Absolutely not. We had to open up. We are open every day. We're still there. Alaska's only safe access point in the entire state because that's the right thing to do.
And that is what, we hear, the folks in California do as well. As soon as they're raided, kind of collect yourself and open back up again.
Absolutely. What else can you do? What else would we do? Tell all of the patients that we serve to go back to the back alleys and street corners because that's the better way of doing things, because the state says we have to wait for permission, even though we existed. We were built on the state's medical marijuana laws. We exist because of us. There is this new legal authority, this new marijuana control board, because of the actions of the Alaska Cannabis Club. So how could we stop?
It's so interesting how the web is so tangled as far as the existence being set up by the vote, which you influenced. What about those rules being set up and waiting for those? We're kind of now on the precipice of things getting going. Take us through where the regulations are as you understand them in Alaska.
Well, the state is preparing to begin accepting applications for the new legal industry. That's where we're at. So the rules are all written. It took months and months of back and forth between the public and state officials and public comment, and now they've settled on a set of rules for processing and cultivation and retail.
And as far as applying for licenses, what is your perspective? What are you doing?
I am advocating for cannabis reform. The Alaska Cannabis Club is there. It exists. We're serving Alaska's medical marijuana community like we set out to do. But when I said I was dedicating my life to fighting for freedom and fairness, that didn't mean the job ended with legalization in Alaska. Not at all. I mean, anyone who saw Fuck It, I Quit, I feel like I have an obligation to do what I can to ensure that they're enjoying more freedom and liberty and fairness in their own communities. So I'm not worried about building a business in 2016. I'm worried about legalization in 2016. I'm worried about the revolution in 2016. And that's what Go Green is all about.
So, yeah, and we do want to talk about Go Green, but as far as Alaska Cannabis Club, that retail shop, what is your sense of what you're going to do as it relates to the licenses that will be needed and the regulations that are set out?
That's not in the plan right now.
Got it. Okay, so then that does bring us to Go Green. It's a pretty ambitious thing that you have put together here. Take us through, what it is. What is Go Green?
GREEN is an acronym for Grassroots Evolution Through Education, Networking, and Empowerment. And Go Green is all about cultivating diversity, unity, and opportunity in cannabis to help heal the communities that have been harmed by prohibition most. So what we're doing right now is looking for people that want to stand up and lead their communities through the end of prohibition to ensure that the result is one that will serve their communities. And to do that, we're having these Go Green grassroots groups where people meet monthly and discuss different things as it relates to cannabis advocacy or the cannabis industry and how people can get involved and get active in order to achieve their goals.
Excellent. When is the first thing, Charlo?
Well, we are launching in a number of cities: Phoenix, Portland, San Francisco, Houston, Las Vegas, West Palm, Miami, and Baltimore, and the list is growing, and all of that is taking place between February and March of this year.
Okay, so I tracked your states there, and each state either has kind of a ballot initiative or a medical program, with the exception of Houston. You're talking about Houston, Texas, yes?
Yeah, I'm talking about Houston, Texas, and Portland.
Why is that? Why is that a city that's in that initial rollout? That seems like an interesting choice.
Well, I think it's important that everyone understand that regardless of where you're at, this fight is happening in your community. And the same applies to Houston. Whether or not people can put citizen initiatives on a ballot or not, or in the case of Texas, where they need to work out how they're going to lobby and convince the people in power to make the decisions that will impact their communities positively, we need to get started now, especially in a place like Houston, Texas. Got to start organizing, got to start game planning, and got to start demanding change. So that's why we're in Houston. All
right, so I'm excited because as we know, there is proof that when you put your mind to something, you absolutely do it. We talked through a fair amount of that here. What would you say, to a young person, let's put Charlo back in her shy kind of early days before you kind of realized who you were and the power that you have. Because we do have folks that are aspiring entrepreneurs, folks that are not necessarily in charge of their, their 100% faculty. What advice would you give someone to find that inner power?
Just keep on pushing. Feel your way through life and never settle. Keep on feeling for what feels right, what feeds your soul, what energizes you, what pushes you. When you wake up in the morning and you know you have a 15-hour day ahead, if it isn't something you are looking forward to, then that's not for you to be doing for the rest of your life. I think a lot of people overlook the power that their careers has on their level of fulfillment in the rest of their life, but your job is what you do. That's your single most amount of focused energy on one thing, and when you're doing it on something that isn't feeding your soul, then you're going to be left feeling empty, or more empty than when you went in. So keep on pushing and never settle. 2016 is all about refusing to settle. It's all about personal responsibility. It's all about the revolution is here. That's what it is. And
Charlo, with you specifically, the revolution will be televised.
It will be televised. Absolutely.
We like to say, just on your comment just there, we like to say, who you are informs what you do. I think your point is what you do informs who you are as well.
I think so. I think that's the way we need to start looking at it.
Okay. All right. So we've got 3 final questions for you. I'll lay them out and then I ask you them one by one. The first question is, what has most surprised you in cannabis? The second question is, what has most surprised you in life? And the third question is, on the soundtrack of Charlo Greene's life, what song, what track must be on your soundtrack? So first things first, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
What's most surprised me in cannabis is the hope that it represents. A lot of people see cannabis, a lot of people that aren't in the culture and have had an opportunity to really dive in and see the inner workings and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the industry and the innovation that's now coming out, see it as just a vice or something to use to pass the time or whatever. But I think the real power in cannabis and why so many people are willing to fight and give up so much of their lives for this plant is because of the hope that it holds for the future, the promise that it holds for the future, the opportunities that it's creating that we see happening now. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So that's what's most surprised me about cannabis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is evident that this is, as you say, just the tip of the iceberg. What has most surprised you in life? This is, I can't wait for this answer.
I think what surprised me most in life is how easy it is. How easy it is to win. How easy it is to live a good, fulfilled life. I mean, you're taught that life is hard growing up and that you have to slave in order to just make enough to survive. And once you snap out of that mentality and realize the abundance that life has to offer and that it is meant for you, everything just seems to fall at your feet. It's almost overwhelming at first. You almost feel like you don't deserve it, but you do. I do. And I think that's been most amazing.
So you kind of sound like you come from an enlightened perspective. So for again, let's go to the advice column. For folks that are trying, and for folks that are that do battle every day, what is it, do you think, that you've found to make it easier for you?
My why. You've got to find your why, the reason behind it all. And it can't be for a certain amount of money or to get a certain person's attention. Now, what is the reason beyond that? Is it security? Is it connection? Is it love? Yes, it's always love. So once you realize your why and know to always go back to that, that'll always fuel you up. Remember why.
What moment do you remember when you realized your why? We kind of talked through it, but not the exact precise moment of you saying, "Oh my God, this is what I was put on this earth to do."
Absolutely. I told you how I became a journalist because I wanted to make a difference. Well, when I met the first member of the Alaska Cannabis Club face to face, her name was Sam, and she was dying, and her doctor decided, well, giving her medical marijuana prescription couldn't hurt anyone at this point. So when she asked where she could fulfill her prescription, he told her to go buy it off the street. She was robbed once and robbed a second time at gunpoint, and she told me she broke down one day and prayed to God for the first time in a couple of decades, actually, longer than I had been alive at the time, and asked him for relief. And when she got online next, the first thing that came up was a link to the Alaska Cannabis Club, akcannabisclub.com. And I was standing in front of her the next day, and she was, tears were pouring out of her eyes. And she told me that the service that I had been called to provide had just renewed her faith in God. So that's when I just knew. So
you've got, cannabis as medicine, and then you've got a fair amount of faith mixed in there too. So that's a powerful moment.
Yeah, absolute faith.
So going from absolute faith to your song choice, Unless It's Faith by George Michael. What song is? Yeah.
One of them is Wake Me Up by Aloe Black, and you know the song.
Oh, I thought you were making a joke because that's another George Michael song.
No.
But Aloe Black gotcha, absolutely.
There's that song, and then also All Right by Kendrick Lamar.
Well, there you have it. Charlo Greene, you are certainly blazing a path. You are doing things, for the first time every day. Thanks for quitting, and then thanks for sticking with it. It's really, you're one of the special people. I told you this in person. You're one of the special people that we have in the industry. So thank you for your efforts.
Well, thank you, Seth.
You got it. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
So there you have Charlo Greene. And that is Charlo Greene. That is what you get. She is not kidding. She is out there to make change. So hope you enjoyed that. We very much enjoy being on the Sex Pod Comedy Co-op and the Cannabis Radio Network. You can check us out on Facebook at Can Economy.